What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Kernedge. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. For those of our listeners who may or may not have known, our buddy, our one of our loyal listeners, Paulav, was in town in Kingman last weekend, and we decided to come up. Everyone came up and met him in Kingman. So
We had
I was
ourselves
there
a
on
throwback night.
Yes, I was on a marathon night, though. I was basically get off work, drive up to Kingman, hang out with the friends, see Paula, turn around, leave Monday or Saturday morning early because I had another thing going in Saturday afternoon. So it was a long whirlwind trip, but we made it.
Yeah, did you sleep hard Saturday night when you finally got to slow down a little bit?
Did I sleep hard? No, because I had to get up early Sunday for my 6 mile run. So no, I didn't. But then Sunday, I slept like really well.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so I got one in. How about you? What'd you do?
Honestly, I am out of practice for as hard as we went on Friday night, and it's not that I drank that much. I think I had 3 beers at Chili's when we were having dinner, catching up initially, and then I had 3 shots of tequila later on in the night. I was sipping as we were at our final bar, the Fireside. But I got to tell you, man, by the time I got to bed, I that's how old I feel like I'm getting. I was up peeing like every half hour, and it drove me nuts. I don't feel like I slept at all on Saturday, and I had every intention to go to bed early on Saturday night. I was like, fuck it. I had my wild night on Friday. I don't have anything else to do this weekend. I'm going to catch up on sleep. And then a friend of mine was coming back from Mexico, and when she got to Houston, she texted me a picture of the Terminal 3 parking garage on fire in Las Vegas.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and she said, that's where we parked. If our car is now melted, will you come get us? So I said, yeah,
you said,
I could do that.
You said, wait a minute, how cute are you? Okay, yes, I will go.
Yeah, I would go regardless, man. And
no, you're a good friend. You're a good friend.
But,
hey, I just want to take a moment, though, to think the third term or Terminal 3 parking lot was on fire. How many cars were damaged, or was she okay?
Well, that's the thing is, like, I asked her, it's like, so when does your flight come in? And she said 10 o'clock tonight on Saturday night. It's like, fuck, I was every intention of going to bed about 8:30, 9 o'clock, just crashing out. So I said, all right, when you touch ground, you get to the car, let me know. And if need be, I'll come get you. And I could just think in my head, man, if I do anything tonight, I know Murphy's Law, I will get that call saying I have to go out and go get them.
Yeah,
because that's how it works. So, and then
of course,
about 8 o'clock, our friend Julia called or text and says, "Hey, there's a bunch of us downtown from work. Why don't you come down?" And I said, "No, I can't. This is why." And in my head, I thought, man, if I go downtown and I know if I just have a beer or two and I start playing pool or whatever, that car is going to be burnt. So I stayed home. I watched the first Star Trek with Chris Pine and those guys, which is one of my favorite action movies. That come out over the last 10 years. And I waited. And once I got the all clear text, she said that their car is about 2 rows off from an entire row of just melted cars. So bullet dodged.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Sunday was strictly just the gym, meal prep, football, recovery, into the work week. Like it was ain't no thing, you know how it is.
I do. Hey, I do want to give a quick shout out to Sandy, who's one of our loyal listeners as well. It was really nice to meet you. And I want to tell the executive producer that she did not want to throat punch me.
She might be one of only a few in that case when it comes to the show. So
That's true.
We do appreciate our listeners, and this is a very impromptu thing. Otherwise, it would have been cool to invite some other loyal listeners out because we didn't really figure this out until I'd say Thursday night or Friday morning of last week. So it is what it is. We got a chance to see everybody hang out. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we get a chance to do it again sooner than later. Maybe a couple weeks at the annual Santa Sack.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I think that it was just such a whirlwind turnaround. I mean, boom, boom, gone. And it just seemed like it wasn't enough time. So next time we'll have to do it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, so what I want to know from our listeners this week is, have you ever gone out and partied so hard, and not even so hard, but just party where you thought was hard and realized that you cannot do it like you used to because it ruined the next couple days for you? That's something I want to know from you guys. So hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Liquid Kernedge. Or if you want a chance to go have a beer or some whiskey with our EP, Tom, hit him up at Twitter and Instagram, all at Liquid_EP.
Well, I think that there was some very interesting discussion last week about the seven, and that's the number seven deadly sins.
Yes, movie
And
seven, seven deadly sins.
yeah, it's not seven SEVEN. I've learned it's
No.
seven with the number, which was good. However, I think we should give a disclaimer right now that one of the things we talked about last week was, those seven deadly sins were written in the 4th century. Maybe we need to come up with a new list of 7 sins that are more applicable to today's time.
Yes.
So
yes,
at this point,
the
Tom,
7 sins of Kernedge.
Yeah, exactly. The 7 sins of Kernedge. And at this point, Tom, you have a decision to make because last week you said that you were about ready to tune out. Well, this week we need you for your notes, so you may not be able to tune out.
Yeah, it's true. So buckle up, Buttercup, because we're doing
buckle up, Buttercup. Get your old fashioned poured and get ready.
All right. So these are the 7 sins of Kernedge. This, in our opinion, the 7 modern deadly sins.
And why, to kind of give a preface to all the listeners, is just as a recap, if you're not familiar with the 7 deadly sins, or you don't remember from last week because you've been drinking, the current 7 deadly sins are lust, gluttony, pride, wrath, envy, sloth, and I'm missing one. Dang it, Jim. Greed. Thank you. Yes, yeah. Greed. So, and
I like how you said currently, like our list is gonna buck the one that's the one list that's been around for centuries. Like someone's gonna read or hear the 7 sins of Kernedge, like, you know what, fuck it, these guys get it. These are the new 7 deadly sins.
Well, and I think that a little bit of historical lesson might be important. Now, the 7 deadly sins were not part of the Bible. I did some research on this. So they were not in the original Bible, but they were derived from a monk in the 4th century of Greek Orthodox who basically was trying to come up with a list of sins that would basically destroy the human soul. And so the list was originally created so that you could the 7 deadly sins would stop you from reaching the 7 heavenly virtues. Okay, so that was the original premise. It was basically a guideline to say, hey, these are bad things. If you do these things, then you're not going to go to heaven. So pursue the 7 virtues and not the deadly sins. Okay,
makes sense.
So continue. So to continue, so we decided, those are a little out of date. Maybe we should come up with the 7 sins of Liquid Kernedge.
The 7 sins of Kernedge. 7 sins of Kernedge.
Perfect. So what we did was we decided to split the list up because obviously 7 is way too many for either Scott or myself to come up with on our own.
That's true.
But we decided if we split the list, then at least we're not using all of our brain cells. Because remember, as Scott already prefaced, we lost a lot of brain cells on Friday night.
Over the weekend, yeah. We cannot do it like we used to. Even though we tried, we cannot do it like we used to.
So what we thought we'd do is we'd start we can start with yours or mine, doesn't really matter, Scott, but we'll go through the 7 sins of Kernedge one at a time and kind of give our thoughts of why that is dangerous to the human soul at this time in the 21st century.
I agree. Why don't you go ahead and read them off the list? Because full disclaimer, I wrote them down, but like a responsible adult, left them on my desk at work.
Perfect.
And
okay.
They are on the text stream that we have to get into for this. So without messing up our sound, I cannot get to them.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so here's the list that we came up with. Arrogance.
Oh, yeah.
Ignorance.
Yep.
Sloppiness.
Oh, yeah.
Anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Apathy.
Oh, yeah.
Cruelty.
Big time.
And compulsion.
Oh, yeah. That one's probably the worst.
Well, I think when I was doing my research, they said that each of them are pretty bad, but one sin usually like overrides all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might discuss as we go through these that one of them is a bit worse or bigger than the others.
Yeah. So in your opinion, which one do you think of those would be the worst?
Oh, man. Okay. So if I'm looking purely at how they would corrupt the soul in a religious sense, I would probably have to say ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was looking at what's corrupting the society and what's worse for society, it's definitely compulsion.
Yeah, I would lead with compulsion all day on this one. I was and compulsion in my opinion became the seventh sin when I was talking to a friend over the last couple of weeks, and she was letting me know how many dudes blow up her DMs with random
What's a DM?
direct message. Have you ever heard the phrase they slid up into the DMs? on
No,
on
no.
social media? If you're trying to talk to somebody, you slide into their DMs. That's how you hit on somebody. You go to the direct messaging, like whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, what have you.
Oh,
And
so a DM is like
it's like a
it's like one of
text.
those old chat rooms where you can pull someone to the side and just have a private convo.
It's basically a text over like one of the social media apps.
Got it. Okay, DM. See, I'm learning something.
You are
Nice.
learning.
Okay.
You are learning. And she was saying that, I would be surprised at how often she got hit on or the most random requests by people. Like someone last week was asking for her that she'd never met before to send pictures of her feet. Another gentleman knew her running route and asked her to stop in mid jog one day so they could stop and chat because he's been seeing her up and down the street and he found her on Facebook.
Ew.
Yeah, she said shit like that happens all the time, and maybe I'm naive because I'm a dude and no one ever slides up into my DMs because generally it doesn't happen the other way. But it's mostly guys being weird and hitting on women like that. It never happens to guys. Well, I shouldn't say never. It hasn't happened to me. So I just as at a moment of ignorance, I was just floored by how often she said it happens, and then you start reading online and seeing how many women actually say this is a problem. Guys do this nonstop, and they don't seem to give a fuck what what the woman says, or if they're shot down, that's how they're going to shoot their shot.
Well, and that kind of leads me to a question, because I always wonder when you're online or doing it where you're not in front of the person, like, would you just go right up to a random stranger and say that? No, you probably wouldn't. So it's only because of the anonymity of the DM that if you get turned down, for example, no big deal. It's a DM. You're not having to face the rejection. You're not having to get slapped across the face. It's all basically just a message, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. In most cases, yeah. And those examples for the feet, for the pictures of the feet, yeah. I'm assuming that was victimless, as it were. Like, if you say no, hey man, no harm, no foul. But the other guy that said, I've been seeing you jog up and down my street. I found you on Facebook. That is stalker-esque. That is creepy. That is, you had better change your jogging path because that is not okay.
And I guess the part, I guess, if we're looking at that type of reaction or that type of questioning, you wonder, like, are you that deranged in your head, or is it only because it's secretive that you are allowed to be compulsive and send that kind of stuff? Ooh, I used one of the terms. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Did you see that? I used one of the terms.
I think I don't know. I think we've moved to such an online society now that it's so much easier to get in touch with someone online, and the worst that they can do is ignore you or block you. Really, or report you. So, but it's not like it's going to the cops. So you can be weird, you can be pervy, you can be creepy, and they don't. As long as they're not engaging you, I guess in that person's mind, they figure, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no. I knew they were going to say no anyway. But there's that one slight chance that maybe she says yes. So it turns into compulsion to where they're going to find every woman they can that they think that would say yes to it and just do it. And it goes back to an old rule of ours from way back when: 50 no's and a yes is still a yes.
That is true. That's true.
But just because you can does not mean you should. That's another old rule.
Yeah. Do you think then by that frame of mind that people want to be bad, or they want to do bad things?
I don't think they necessarily want to do bad things, but I think there's I don't want to say darker, but maybe an edgier side to all of us that we show the public. I think the internet and social media has shown that there are more exotic ways to express yourself than maybe we're allowed to do in our daily lives because of the communities we create around ourselves. Does it make sense?
I think so. Yeah. There was an interesting. I was reading. I've told you this. I read the Bible because I wanted to find out a little bit more about what people, were interpreting when they read the Bible. And there was a great passage in one of the stories that sin basically lives in all of us.
Yeah.
Right. But it's society and it's faith that keeps that sin from expanding out into the world. But all humans have sin in them, and it's restraints that keep the sin from coming out. So I'm wondering if we live in a world now where people are more willing to have their sin come out as long as it doesn't, violate laws or something. They're more likely to tell someone that they like to have foot fetishes, or they like S&M, or they like
I don't.
that they shouldn't.
I don't think they care so much anymore because it's been normalized online. There's websites they can go to find the weird things that makes them think it's okay to go out and ask anybody randomly. Now, if it's somebody that is into the same thing you are, hey man, more power to you. But to approach strangers like that, it's fucking weird.
Yeah, well, like you said, 50 no's and a yes is a yes, right?
That is yes. I think we could probably spend all night on compulsion and go back and forth on it. But we probably
and I think that I was thinking of compulsion like people who know that drugs are bad for them, but they still use the drugs. Or
isn't that addiction though too?
Well, addiction, compulsion, I think they're synonymous.
Yeah, I can go with
because
that.
you could be addicted to a lot of different things. I was kind of interested in one of yours, arrogance. Like, explain to me one of yours, because that was an interesting one to me, and I wanted to kind of understand your thought process on that one.
I think to me, arrogance goes a whole lot further into the online world that we have today. You can read about it like Instagram now. The CEO of Instagram is taking away the like button because it's influencing. He thinks the likes are influencing how people perceive themselves and what they post on there for picture wise, selfies or what they're doing in life, and to show that they're living the good life, or they're a 10 out of 10 on the hotness scale. You know what I'm saying?
And it's unwarranted arrangance.
Yeah,
it's like you really haven't done anything to think that you're this cool or you have this much going for you.
Yeah, he recognized that people are starting to rely on getting their self-worth based on the amount of likes they have on Instagram, so they're getting rid of the like button on there. And a lot of people, if you have an Instagram, like people are quote unquote social influencers now, where they think if they post pictures of themselves wearing certain clothes or certain jewelry or doing certain things that they can get paid for that. So they tend to post pictures of themselves doing it more and more and more, hoping to get more and more followers. And then when they're not doing that, they're just posting pictures of themselves, trying to show off the baller life that they think they're living.
Now, what does it tell you that in our society, those people usually get rewarded for that arrogance?
I think it's a sad state of affairs, really. It makes me sad to think that hard work in this case isn't being done to find that kind of success. It's someone having the proper lighting or taking the proper picture, or and people following because they think they're cool because they saw them on a reality show. I think the Kardashians are a perfect example of that. That is a family that's literally done nothing of substance in this world except their late father was a lawyer for O.J. Simpson. Had it not been for that, they would not have had nearly the success socially and in the online branding world that they've had.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I was looking at when I read arrogance, I was also thinking that it's a false glorification of yourself over other people.
But isn't that what social media is? Like when you see people posting all these pictures of themselves and things they're doing, they're trying to show how cool their life is. No one's showing the daily, this is what I go to work to every day, or this is what I have to drive to work. No, man, they're showing the cool, like they went to a fancy dinner at a 5-star restaurant, or they finally got to take that vacation, that they've been dreaming about for years. That's once in a lifetime. But they're going to post every picture to make it look like they're ballers.
Yeah, interesting. And there is something to be said about what is really going on. I mean, are you doing it because you're trying to overcompensate, or are you doing it just because you think that you're better than everyone else?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
One of the ones that I was like I put on there was the anxiety. And what I meant by anxiety was how many people alter their lives because of fear of things that may or may not happen. I don't know if you remember, if you're old enough, Scott, but there was something called Y2K.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but how many people like basically sold every asset they had, and they made a bunker for themselves, and they bought 40 years worth of toilet paper, and they did all this stuff just to find out that it was not even necessary.
Yeah.
And so anxiety cripples what people would have done had they not been controlled by their anxiety.
Yeah, and I think anxiety is the main driver in the way the world works today too. It's companies can make it very apparent that everyone's replaceable unless you do your job at a high efficient rate. I think Amazon last week tonight did a great piece on Amazon a few months back about how they monitor the people in their warehouse and see how fast they're able to package up or fill orders in the shipment warehouses. And if they drop below a certain percentage rate, they get fired. And that's affecting how they take their breaks, how often they actually get a chance to go to the bathroom. All basic rights that we've been told we're allowed to have, but the institution of measurable metrics in a place like an Amazon warehouse has now creating a more anxiety in certain professions. Sales go down.
And I think about it from the perspective. I had friends who won't travel to foreign countries because they're so afraid that something might happen to them.
Oh yeah.
And to cripple yourself over a fear. Thomas Jefferson had a great quote. The idea of anxiety. How often is the idea of anxiety stopping us from something that has never or will never happen?
Oh, I agree.
And it's to me it's a problem because that anxiety is so controlling that. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not going to jump out of an airplane because I have a fear of flying, but maybe I am missing something, but the something that I'm missing is not so detrimental to me that if I don't ever do that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But, we were talking about that earlier, when we were talking about our passions, we're so afraid to fail that we don't even try to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of where the anxiety comes from. It's, we're told in this world now to produce, whether it be, financially, in a familial sense. There's so much pressure, I think, that we're putting on ourselves to be active before we get replaced, that it's affecting the world. You go back to anxiety and travel and whatnot. My parents are a perfect example. When we took our trip to Mexico on that cruise back in 2011, my dad was convinced that we were going to get in a gang shooting down in Cabo.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because he was in law enforcement, and he kept saying, "Well, you don't see all the stuff we see." It's like, yeah, that's great, but it's also a tourist town. I think they recognize you don't go deep into it; you just stay in the touristy spots. You're fine,
Right.
And you look at what happened. All the mass graves they found down by Rocky Point or the shootout. I don't want to say those are isolated incidents, but the shootout was between extremist Mormons and a cartel. So I think there might have been something else going there because that Mormon camp was loaded to the teeth with ammunition too, so they knew something was going down. Those kids were packing heat too. So different story for a different podcast. Still though, you cannot live with the anxiety that the minute I cross the border to a foreign country that doesn't speak English, I could be in trouble.
And yet I definitely don't want to dismiss that a person's anxiety about a lot of things isn't real or isn't important, but I also feel like when we're talking about building a full life, some people let their anxiety limit what their life could be, because and a lot of times it's warranted on nothing in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so anyways, that's why I found that one interesting when I was thinking about it, that how often are we controlled by things that we're afraid of, instead of saying, something's more. There was that famous quote, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the recognition that something is more important than the fear.
Yeah. Yes, that is the quote. So what else do we have on the list?
We have ignorance, which I said, to me, that is probably the biggest one that I see all the time, especially in the world of our news, is how, I don't want to say gullible, but how just there's not a sense of wanting to learn or educate yourself beyond that 140 character blip.
No, I agree. I think we now live in a very fast news society that people don't want to learn more for themselves. They want to see whatever the major news networks tell them. And if it didn't happen on Fox or MSNBC, it didn't happen.
Right. Or if it
And
did, yeah.
that's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, and people don't take the time to look into it, or, to find out more. Our friend JP is a teacher, and he's teaching American history in one of his classes. And I was like all excited, like, oh, how are the kids accepting it? And they said kids don't even care. They don't want to know about it. And I'm thinking, wow, that level of lack of a earnest to want to learn something is going to be detrimental to your future. You know what I mean? Like, that's detrimental. You don't even realize how detrimental that is, but it's, it's so important. And yet there's a lot of people that are more than willing to forego, the lack of ignorance to make it easy, right? Just I don't need to know that, or I just need to know the bullet point.
Yeah. And I think, with ignorance comes the understanding that as you get older, you need to be able to look deeper into a story and understand it's not just, nothing is black and white.
That is for sure.
It's and I live in a community where it's very ultra conservative and it's very Fox News driven. And if it didn't happen on Fox News, well, by God, it's a lie. And the truth only comes from that channel, and that's a problem, because if you try to broach anything else to them that could be another idea, they don't want to hear it.
Right. Sloppiness. This one I think is kind of like sloth, but I get your point. Like, you don't keep things in control and order, you're destined to have issues.
Yeah, the common phrase is dumpster fire right now. When it's a term we throw out in our office. Like, this project's a dumpster fire, that person's a dumpster fire, the situation's a dumpster fire. Like, it's sloppy, man. It could be a lot cleaner if someone just took the time to do things the right way and get the right answers and not be so hurried just to get things done.
Okay. I had apathy on mine, just not caring enough to go the extra mile, not caring enough this is more, I don't know, I see in customer service all the time now how deteriorated it is, because people just don't care. They act like they don't care. Like, when they screw up your order, the sense of urgency, like, a perfect example, I went to Sonic to get a diet something. And the lady comes up to me and says, well, we really don't have the diet soda that you want, but we'll offer you the regular soda if you want. And I'm thinking, is diet soda, regular soda, are they the same thing? Well, no.
Yeah.
Well, then why would I want a regular soda then? I don't understand. But it's a sense of, you just don't care. Like, okay, well, whatever. And when you're talking about little things, it's not a big deal. But when you're talking about big things in this world that are important, like, I'm surprised how many people who I know don't vote.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
yeah,
wow,
no, I am
okay.
too.
Okay.
It's heartbreaking.
So my final one was cruelty. And I only say this because of the whole bullying thing and how people are so mean in their social world. I think it's a corruption of someone's soul when they are so mean for no reason, like no justification, no reason, just to be mean. I just hate it. It's just corruption.
And I take that as, like, animal cruelty more than human cruelty. I think anyone that can abuse an animal, something that can't fight back for itself, I think that's a horrible person, and they deserve to be beat with a rubber hose. I take that very personally and very strongly.
Yeah, and I was looking more from a bullying perspective, but yeah, I think anyone who anyone who preys on people who are perceived, not even a reality, but are perceived as weaker for no reason, but just to be cruel, it's just it sickens me every time I see it.
Oh, I agree. So if you have something you consider a deadly sin in today's world, why don't you hit us up and tell us about it on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, all at Liquid Kernedge. If you'd like to see Tom commit one of these 7 deadly sins in public, which I think would be kind of funny for some of them, not that he actually would, hit him up on Twitter and Instagram, all at liquid_EP.
Hey, it seems like every notes he hits cruelty on me. He always picks on me.
It's true.
He does.
And I'm not going to lie. Being the younger sibling, I'm glad it's more directed towards you. While I do get my share of heat, I think he just thinks I'm being more apathetic or
ignorant or
ignorant. Yeah, I do have a feeling he does not realize that I know as much as I know. I think I'm still just a dumb little brother.
Well, you do pretty good, my friend.
I try to, as do you. So that being said, these are our 7 sins of Kernedge. We hope you enjoyed the show. And Jason, since we're running out of time, why don't you go ahead and take us home?
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. That was Scott. I am Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some Liquid Kernedge.